Aiden asked me if I'd talk to you today about how do you find the decision makers at trade associations and societies. Okay. Now, for any of you that have been in the ASSC for any length of time, you've probably heard me tell you the absolute best way to find the decision maker at a trade association or a society is go to the website, find out who their editor or director of publications is, contact them, give them your articles, explain to them, you can use AI for that, explain to them how their articles will help solve the problems that their members in their industry have. And again, as I said, use AI for that. But then the key is after you've made the relationship bank deposit and given the editor articles, only after then can you, right before you hang up on the call, say, oh, by the way, before I let you go, quick question. Would you tell me who the decision maker is for selecting speakers? Now let's pause right there for a second. Do we really care if they run our articles? Not really. It would be nice. It would be wonderful, but it doesn't matter because the whole reason for the call was not necessarily to get your articles published. It was to find out who the decision maker is that hires speakers that can pay your fee. Most of the time, the editor or director of publications, whichever title, again, might be a communications manager, it might be editor, it might be director of publications, any of those. Generally, that person, they will appreciate the fact that you've offered them some of your articles. They'll generally tell you the truth and tell you who the person is that selects speakers. And before you hang up, go, just wanted to make sure, is this person the logistics person that kind of puts it all together, or are they actually the one that decides on who selects speakers? And then go from that point. Now, that's the absolute best way to do it, to absolutely know who makes the decisions. And let's be honest, a lot of people aren't going to do that. It's the easiest way, it's the best way, but there's this little thing called reluctance. There's this little thing called fear of selling. And so I recognize that a lot of people just aren't going to do that. And those of you in the ASSC, we've been working real hard to create AI tools to help you, but those AI tools are limited because if you don't get the queries and the emails and the invitation to the right person, it's kind of like it never happened. So if you send an association person your information and they're not the decision maker, they may send it over to the decision maker, but probably they won't. So, okay, plan B. What's the next week we can do? So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to, oh, there we go. Share screen. Screen shared. Okay, now at the ASSC website. Okay, those of you that are members, you know that we have all of these interviews where we've interviewed the decision. Well, I have interviewed the decision maker. So here, Christy Beatty is the vice president, chapter services and member engagement. So and if you watch this interview, you would know who she is, what aspect she has control over. Okay, so that's the second best. Watch the almost 70 interviews that we have here with decision makers. But if for some reason that doesn't work, okay, let's look at plan C. Okay, so let's go onto the internet. And I know you can use AI for this, but I just used the old-fashioned Google way, and I pulled up Associated General Contractors. And you can see it's offering me the link to their chapters, to their calendar events, education, about us, so forth and so on. Here's the interesting thing. In the About Us, I find the staff directory right here. I click on it. I don't have a password. Okay, so that's not going to work. I'm kind of hosed on that deal. So let's go over to chapters. Let's go to Associated. Now, I will tell you, Associated General Contractors, they're pretty large contractors. They build the tall buildings and the highways across the country. They have money. And I will tell you that I've spoken at their conference, I've spoken for the chapters, and they paid me at all of the above. So if we want to go here and get some information about chapters, okay, that's a backdoor way into the association. Okay, so let's just click on, oh, let's hit Colorado for fun. Okay, there's 2 AGCs in Colorado. Here's the information. So you can then contact those people. Other things you can do, let's see, where is it? We have calendars of events. So it'll tell you when the chapters are having the events. And over here, we have AGC, their big annual convention. So it'll give you all the information about their convention. But if you're not an ASSC member and you don't have access to watch these videos, okay, and you're probably thinking, thanks, Ed, appreciate the sales pitch. No, not really. So let's give you another approach. Let's go to LinkedIn. Okay. And at LinkedIn, let's search for Associated General Contractors. Okay. So the AGC company page where most of the staff follows, okay, I'm going to click down here where it says people. I want to know who the people are that are connected. And it's going to give me some information about where they're located. But like with everything, scroll down. Okay. So right here, we've got Jessica, God, I probably butchered the pronunciation, Kazume. She's coordinator of virtual learning. Speakers might want to know her. James Young, director of HR. Not really. Let's move down here and see. Well, here's a good one. Cynthia Kay, manager of conferences. Well, that could be of interest. Brian Trumbull, not so much. Okay, Keith Dillon, executive director, innovation. Maybe, maybe not. Let's keep going down. Oh, looky here. Suzanne Hitt, director, multimedia and communications. So do you think that if you were to contact her, she might know who the editors are and may even direct you to the editor, and the editor then may take your articles and direct you to who the decision maker is? So I think it's, or here's one. So Michelle Anaya, she is the CEO at AGC Florida. Okay, so she's the CEO of the Florida chapter. You can always cuddle up to somebody at one of the chapters, offer your articles, talk to them about their meetings, and then ask them about national. Because most of the chapter presidents, or I mean the chapter CEOs, they're going to be able to tell you everything you need to know about national. And if we want to go show more results, let's see what else we can find. Oh, how about this one? Mary Doan, Senior Director, Conferences and Operations. That's a definite keeper. So as we go through these, you've got a couple ways you can approach this. Now, let me just take you back over to the let me go back. I'm going to take you back to the ASSC website, and I'm going to go over to requests for speakers. I'm going to go to the association event page. Now, okay, we've talked about this on a bunch of the calls recently, and Aiden and I worked together, mostly Aiden, to create this unfair advantage tool. which what it's going to basically do is give you a 20-second telephone script that you can either use for leaving a voicemail or talking to somebody on the phone. And it will give you a email letter to the person saying, I understand the problems your association, your industry is having, a paragraph on that. Here's why my material, paragraph on your material, is the best to solve your members' problems. Paragraph 3 is here's why I'm the best person to deliver that material. And then if you send it out to people and they have a response, then this Unfair Advantage tool also gives you an RFP that you can just cut and paste and send back to them if they say, yeah, we're interested. But here's kind of an interesting thing. Let me just scroll you through. I've been futzing around. A lot of you know about this. I'll take you, let's just take you this one right here. Okay. So the American Association of Physical Anthropologists. Okay, so right there, I've put the director of meetings, director of conventions. I've also put the second senior director of meetings, conventions. Then I've put, okay, so we've got the links to these different people. And so the thing is, also at the very bottom here, I put the executive director, Brett Burke. So a quicker, faster way of doing this, if you don't want to, or if you're just, averse to making phone calls. I mean, I get it, is to use the Unfair Advantage tool and send your spiel, your email off to everybody. Let me pop a couple others. AMC Institute, I think we have a program on that one. Also, let me cruise through these here real quick. Here's a fun one. American Physical Therapy Association. Now, I've never spoken for the national, but I've spoken for the California Physical Therapy Association. But if you look down here, I've given you the name, the director of meeting services, and the conventions and meetings director and the executive director. So, okay, if you don't want to really go to a lot of work, I've given you the email here. You can just email the executive director, and he may or may not be the decision maker. Or you can go futz around through LinkedIn and find these people. Also, on LinkedIn, so what I wanted to throw at you before we forget, now we've already done a workshop on this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but in the resources, Aiden and I have a workshop on this. But if we go to, I go to my network, okay, and then I'm going to come down here to my connections, okay, and then I'm going to come up here to search with filters. Got it? I know LinkedIn doesn't make it easy. And then I'm going to come up here, all filters. Okay, there we go, all filters. Hallelujah, finally. Now, if I were you and I wanted to find some of these decision makers, you don't click on first. Well, you may be connected, but chances are you're not. So click on second. You can leave the first clicked on if you want, but scroll down and just skip all of the information till you get to the very bottom. When you get to the very bottom, if I can ever find it, under title, I'll just put conference. So that might be the director of conference, conference VP, whatever. And I'm going to put association. So I want you to see what I did. So generally people would put the company name. Well, maybe we don't know who we're looking for. And maybe we don't know as far as the title who we're looking for. Now, you can, instead of conference, you could put meeting. And instead of association, you could put society. Fair enough? Let's look at what LinkedIn tells me. Now, LinkedIn tells me that here's, what is it? 249 people. So there's a Bonnie Stites, who is National Association of Realtors. I stay away from that world. Here's a really good one. Allison Leff, Senior Director, Conference Operations at National Association Manufacturers. Now, the National, many of you have heard me talk about this before. The National Association of Manufacturers is the umbrella organization for most of the manufacturing associations in the United States. So if you were to speak at NAM, you see here, NAM, if you were to speak at NAM, a lot of the people that would be in your audience would be executive directors of manufacturing associations. But see, now we know, okay, this is a good suspect. Allison is a real good suspect. So what might you do? You might try to connect with her, or we might, let's just see what information we can find. So let's go down here to more and see what she's willing to share with the world. Hold on. Let's download it. Okay. She's not, oops. Oh, I hit the wrong one. Let me go back up here. Contact info. Sorry. Okay, she's not willing to share a whole heck of a lot. So you'll have to play with other ways to get a hold of her. Like maybe you would just call the National Association of Manufacturers, ask to speak to Allison, and ask her, I'm just looking to find out, are you the person that is the decision maker on speakers, or is that somebody else? And probably a good amount of the time, they'll tell you the truth. So, I mean, these are ways to find out who the decision makers are. What are the typical titles? Okay. Decision makers might be the association and or society CEO, executive director, chief operating officer, COO, might be director of meetings, director of conferences, manager of meetings, manager of conferences, director of events, manager of events. Okay, the director of education is usually a different pocket. It usually doesn't have anything to do with their meetings, but that's the person that puts together the monthly workshops and Zoom and all that. Although not always, because one interview I just did with an association executive, her title is director of meetings, but she's director of events. I'm sorry, let me try again. Her title is the director of education, but she hires the speakers for the meetings. So, I mean, there is no steadfast, it's always this person. So what can be done, another way to skin this cat is, let's play around here just a little bit more. I just want to find one that looks like fun. Distribution contractors. That looks interesting. Okay. So Distribution Contractors Association. I think these are the ones that are the low volt contractors. Let me see. We see that Becky Hotkins is the director of meetings. Okay, so let's go about. Okay, let's see if we're lucky. You ready? I don't know. I haven't checked this one. Staff. God bless them. Okay, so we have the current information, who the executive director is. Now, if you're going to use the Unfair Advantage tool, what the heck? Send Robert an email. Let's see if his email isn't apparent. Well, I'll show you some other ways to look for emails. So I'd send him one. Director of Administration? No. Director of Communications? Maybe, but why not just go right down here? Katie Grandel. She is probably your best prospect. Okay, so if I were you and I were doing some prospecting, let me see if there's any others here that float my boat. Well, so if I were in your shoes, I would send Katie the information that comes from the Unfair Advantage tool that mostly Aiden and I have put together for you. And I would send that same email to Robert Darden. And between the two of them, your chances are pretty strong that you're going to get the decision maker. Now, when you look at association websites and there's several people in meetings, well, you may just want to send it to all of them. What do you got to lose other than a few minutes? So if we look at their events, we can see that they've got an annual convention. But look at here. Here's the interesting thing. A lot of speakers overlook this. Okay, annual convention. Cool. But what about their mid-year meeting? What about their safety congress? What about their fall meeting? Their leadership development program is probably for either chapter leaders or the leaders of the companies. So, I mean, these are all things that they could maybe hire you as a speaker. And what you might want to do, in addition to the Unfair Advantage tool that Aidan and I provided for you, you might want to take a quick look at these different events. Let's just hit the fall meeting. Okay. And if you're sending Robert an email, let's look right here at their fall meeting. So what is their fall meeting all about? Okay, well, look at here. We got information about the speakers that they're brought in and what they're hiring. But now, if you were to go in here, fall meeting agenda. Now, obviously, this was last year's. So if you were contacting him for this year, let's look at it. And you'd look at this agenda and ask yourself, where does my material fit in? And then you would just, I'll pull out, let's just take 440 to 425, workforce development. I'm just pulling that out of the air. So let's say you noticed in your 24 meeting in the afternoon, you had a workforce development committee meeting. That would be a perfect place for me to speak, or whatever the case may be. Let me see if they got more days. Or futures committee, or you speak at a lunch, or up here, town hall business session. Okay, the keynoter was Nathan Gonzalez. Well, maybe you want to say, hey, I noticed last year at your town hall business session keynote, you had Nathan Gonzalez. He talked about yada, yada, yada. Here's what I can bring to the table this year that would add on to that. So what you're doing, and I've been hearing from a number of decision makers that the speakers that take the time to look at their meeting and go, hey, I could speak at your meeting and do this, this, this. Now you can do that same thing. Remember, okay, where are we? Events. So you've got the fall meeting, you've got the fall meeting, you've got the mid-year meeting, you got the convention. So there's a minimum of 3 opportunities, maybe even 4, maybe the leadership development. Okay. Now, if you're a subject matter expert on safety, well, then that would be good for you too. But what you want to do is not just spam these people. Go slower, send less emails, but send very targeted emails. Go to their website. I'm going to stop the share here and just kind of recap. So again, job 1, number 1, find the editor, call the editor, give them your articles, ask them for, after your relationship bank deposit, ask them for relationship bank withdrawal, who's the decision maker. By far, fastest, best way to absolutely know who the decision maker is. Okay. Second best, call anybody at the association and ask. They may or may not answer because you haven't made a relationship bank deposit. You're only asking for a relationship bank withdrawal. So then, if you're an ASSC member, we've already done your work for you with the people we've interviewed. In the page at our website, most of the associations I've already put for you who I think are the most prospective as far as the decision makers. And quite frankly, you can just send the information from the Unfair Advantage to those 1, 2, or 3 key people. Also, you can go into LinkedIn to that association's company page, find the people. Also, go into your LinkedIn and do a search, as I showed you how to do the search. Search for association as the company, And for the job title, search conference, search meeting, search events. Those 3 searches. So that gives you 3 for association, 3 for society. And quite frankly, that should keep you going for a long time. Hit their website. It's really not that hard, but here's the hard thing. I know we all want it tied up in a nice, neat package, and I know you want us to put a bow on it and say, always the meeting decision maker is this person. Associations are so different. There's so much from soup to nuts. Each association is a little different. Each one does things a little bit different. So you're going to have to do a little bit of your own research to find out who absolutely makes the decisions. And sometimes different people make the decisions for different meetings. So you're going to need to do that also. You need to if you talk to an editor and ask them about the decision maker, my God, before you ask them, check. Do they have meetings? Do they have more than one meeting? Ask them about who's the decision maker for speakers for this meeting, this meeting, this meeting, this meeting. What about, the other thing, do they have a chapter council where all the chapter executive directors get together? Yes, there's a speaking opportunity for you that may not be even listed on their website. So these are all places that you can get speaking opportunities if you take a little time to noodle around to find out who the true decision maker is. Well, that's about all for today. Aiden, sending it back to you.